Hello and welcome to the Green 19 podcast. I'm Dominique Yates. Joining me are my colleagues Ryan Wood and Tom Silverstein inside Lambeau Field as the Packers are getting ready for Sunday's game against the undefeated Minnesota Vikings. One of the toughest challenges that the Packers have had up to this point in the season. And it's going to be a fun matchup, and there's a lot of things that we can kind of jump into. And the first thing, this is the second straight week where Packers quarterback Jordan Love has been going through practice, and he's been getting some reps out there, and we've been able to watch from what we have seen of practice. But he did talk in the locker room on Wednesday. He talked to the media, and I guess for you, Ryan, what were your takeaways and your impressions on what he said? But I guess the main thing is, of course, he's tight-lipped right now.
I think he's playing. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think there's. I'd be surprised if he didn't play.
At this point, I mean, he keeps saying it's a build-up, and everything's been building up, and there hasn't seemed to be any setbacks. So,
yeah, I mean, he said he was close. The thing that kind of piqued my interest was that he said during the week, last week, that he was listening to his body, and his body was telling him no, he's not ready. And so that decision, I don't know when that decision was made, but I think they sit down on Saturday with him and what do you think? And so to me that made me think, okay, well, he's doing well, but there's always this this little item of, okay, maybe he doesn't feel quite right, and maybe he's the kind of guy who needs to feel right in order to play. So that would be the one thing that would make me wonder whether he's playing. I agree. I think he's going to play, but there's this little thing in the back of my head going, well, they could wait one more week. They might have to. It's not worth the risk if he doesn't feel right.
I was told in the locker room in Tennessee by a player that he found out Saturday. So if you think about the timeline, it was internal knowledge by Saturday that Jordan Love would not play. First thing that we saw when we got to the stadium at Nissan Stadium in Nashville was Jordan Love throwing passes and going through a workout. It was not to test the knee. It was a workout to kind of keep him up in shape. The thing that stands out to me is asking him last week, and I didn't expect the answer. I asked, how important is the mobility piece to you being able to play? And I didn't expect him to say it's really important because I've seen Aaron Rodgers on one leg multiple times just be a pocket passer, pick teams apart, and win. Like, we've seen that 2014 playoffs. We saw that 2018. We've seen that over and over again. You got a guy that's a really talented arm. If you take away the mobility, they should be able to play. Jordan Love is like, no, I need my mobility to play. And so in hindsight, the mobility wasn't there. I thought in practice this week he is moving much better than last week. It is a big difference in just jogging station to station. Last week he was gimpy. I mean, you could tell he was not at full speed. He looks a lot closer to that this week. We'll see what I'd be really surprised if he didn't play. I kind of expect him to be out there.
Because of everything going into this game, you have an undefeated team in the Vikings, been one of the surprise teams in the NFL, one of the few teams that are still undefeated. If he didn't play, do you think the fans would be a little mad?
I'm curious what you think, Spoon. I think it's interesting because this is a fan base that's used to seeing Brett Favre
and the Rodgers are the word,
play through anything.
Injured,
And the news this week that Brett Favre said that he's been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which is one of the neurodegenerative disorders that is covered by the NFL concussion settlement. He played through anything and took an absolute toll to do so. I've seen Aaron Rodgers play on a broken knee. I've seen him play on all kinds of injuries. So this is a fan base that's used to seeing the quarterback come hell or high water be out there every single week, no exceptions made. And the only two times that Aaron Rodgers missed games is when he broke his collarbone. There's nothing to do about that. Sprained MCL, I kind of feel like Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers play through that. We don't know what the knee is and the situation with the knee, but it just seems like one of those things that they would have played through. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, Favre had a sprained PCL back against Washington. Then they had a bye week, and then he ended up starting. He had a severe ankle sprain against Chicago going into the Chicago game, and they wrapped it up and did a game plan where he didn't have to move, and he threw for 5 touchdowns. But this is a little bit of a different animal. Rodgers was out, and he was out. His so-called broken knee was, a slight fracture that caused him some pain, and we didn't see signs that he couldn't move. He could still move. Yeah. Whether it was with pain, that, we don't know for sure, but I'm sure it was. I don't know. I just think that it's so early in the season that you don't take a chance with your franchise guy. And if they lost, some fans would second guess them and call them soft, I think. But, a lot of people said that about Rodgers because that collarbone took like 2 months,
right.
And he kept saying it was McKenzie, that was holding him back. So I don't know. From my standpoint, if a guy's hurt, a guy's hurt. And you don't play if, you think you're going to hurt the team.
To your point, the one time I can remember Aaron Rodgers playing with obvious diminished mobility was 2014. But that was the playoff run, right? That was the playoffs. This wasn't week 2, week 3, maybe it wasn't September. So I want to be very clear. This could not have worked out any better for the Packers, having him sit these 2 weeks, winning both games. And this is really the week where, you really need him. You need him against this team, against an NFC North rival, the last unbeaten team in the division, coming at home where you got to win these divisional games at home. Yeah. This is the week where they, and it's worked out to this point. I think it'll be really interesting, Spoon, if they have a package for Malik Willis or if they just go straight Jordan Love. I mean, that's a question just because of Malik Willis's dynamic playmaking with the football, his athletic ability. Not that he's anything close to the quarterback that Jordan Love is, but just the switch up that we've seen teams occasionally do.
I could see them doing it on a 3rd and short package. I could see them doing it in a red zone package, something like that. But I don't think LaFleur wants to take Love off that much. I would be more interested to see if they would use him. They used Keyshawn Nixon as a wide receiver last year and ran him on an end around. Why not line up Willis there? Then you also have the possibility if he gets it on an end around that he's going to throw it. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does something gadget with him too.
I guess that was I'm sorry, that was going to be a question I was asked because of how Willis has played the last 2 games. Has he almost dealt LaFleur a hand you have to find a way to get him on the field throughout?
Well, it's interesting because Pete Doherty asked Jordan Love point blank at his locker. You think that maybe Malik Willis should have a package because of his playmaking ability? Jordan Love just smiled. All he said was, I think I can do the same thing too. Now, to your point, Spoon, I don't think that Jordan Love's taking any end-arounds in a jet motion like a Keyshawn Nixon that you're talking about with maybe Malik Willis. I don't see Jordan Love doing that. But if it's quarterback plays, I don't think Jordan Love's wanting to give that up.
Well, against a team that is all about deception and is trying to make you play on the defensive, react to what they're doing, it would be a way of throwing that back in their face and saying, okay, you deal with Malik Willis, and Jordan Love on the field at the same time. How are you going to deal with it? So I honestly would not be surprised if we saw it, assuming Jordan Love plays.
Matt LaFleur's going to have fun with that, right? What have we seen the last 2 weeks? How much fun is he having with his scheme? That's an opportunity for LaFleur to roll up his sleeves and just get creative and have a hell of a time doing it. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Who are some of the guys for this Packers offense that you're keeping an eye on going into this matchup? Because, there's been a lot of talk about the Vikings on defense. They have a lot of really good guys. Jonathan Grenard, just all those guys have been playing some high-level football. And, Brian Flores even said this week that he's preparing for Love and Willis. He has defenses and he has plans and stuff put in place for both of those guys. So when you look at it, obviously, with the Colts, it was about the run game. All eyes were going to be on Josh Jacobs. Last week, you saw a little bit more from Malik in terms of throwing the ball. You saw some of the receivers step up. So who are you looking at? It could be more than one guy. I'll even start with you, Spoon. Who are some guys that on offense you're really kind of keeping an eye on because of what the Vikings like to do defensively?
Number one, it's going to be, it's 2 guys. It's Jacobs and Wilson because they're going to have to block. And they're going to have to read all of the blitzes that Flores brings. And, it's not just bringing safeties. It's everybody plays a position. Like, everybody can play any other position. So you might have Grenade, you mentioned, or even a big guy like Harrison Phillips standing up. I mean, I've seen them where they have like 6 guys standing up. And you don't know for sure who's going to come or who's dropping into coverage. And the back, Love might be able to read it really well, but the back's got to be able to read it. And he's got to be able to come across the formation if that's what the call is. So those 2 guys are huge. Also, I think, I don't know how Flores is going to play it. I assume his number 1 goal is going to be to stop Jacobs, because force Love, find out whether Love can beat you. You absolutely want to find out if Malik Willis can beat you. So, he may just jam up the line of scrimmage, and then it's going to be, all on the offensive line and Jacobs to figure out a way. So.
The thing that I'm going to be really curious to see is not just this week if Jordan Love plays, but it's over the next few weeks, is I feel like they've discovered something about themselves in Jordan Love's absence, and that's that they can be a physical offense. They can run the football, even when the other team knows you got to run the football. They can have success doing that. Dude, and I think, especially you look at the 53 runs against the Colts, what was most impressive about that? It was that they stuck with it. Like, how many times have we seen this Packers offense, go back to Mike McCarthy, it's not just a Matt LaFleur thing, have success running the ball, but, you've got this quarterback back there. He's got a big arm. He's a really talented guy. He's a big playmaker, chunk, explosive plays. You got to throw the ball. Even if you have success running the football, can they stick with what they discovered over these past couple weeks now that they have Jordan Love back, or whenever that happens? That is a big question to me. And if they are able to, what's a quarterback's best friend? It's a run game. Like that, if you have true elite balance on your offense, and especially in this offense where Matt LaFleur's entire passing game is predicated on the play-action pass, if they have that great threat of running the football, it only makes Jordan Love better and these receivers better. It's easier to get open. It's easier to throw deep because you got the defense sucking up, knowing it has to stop the run. Sticking with the run game and what they've discovered about themselves over these past couple of weeks, when they have Jordan Love back, I'll be very curious to see that.
That's true, but especially what showed me about, you mentioned the run game and just the O-line and how those guys have stepped up. Like the Titans as a team, maybe not great, but the defensive line was really good, and they still were able to have some success running the ball. And, I mean, the running back group, you can say they're flexing their muscles right now. Obviously, Josh Jacobs, but Emmanuel Wilson, game after game, is getting confidence, caught that touchdown on a screen pass. So I think what stood out to me the most about this Packers team is that they've developed an identity on offense without Jordan Love. So I am curious on what it will look like when you throw him back in the mix, even if he's fully 100% or not, because, like I said, you open up the passing game even more when he is on the field.
Well, all of a sudden, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, one guy who's really suffered as a result of all this is Luke Musgrave. He's disappeared completely. Mm-hmm. And when Jordan Love is back, he's going to be a bigger part of the offense. All those guys have suffered because they've been running the ball, and Malik Willis is, for all the things he's done, they're not throwing the ball down the field. Yeah. They're just not. Yeah. Once in a while, when they have to, they will. But Jordan Love's going to try to pick guys apart. Mm-hmm. And he had decent success in the last meeting with the Vikings. And the way it started, what I'm really interested to see is if LaFleur goes back to a couple of things. One, with Love hurrying up to the line of scrimmage and snapping the ball before the Vikings are all set. He did that a few times against the Vikings. They got a couple big plays off of that. This was up in Minneapolis. The other thing was he kept attacking the perimeter. Like, these guys were rushing at him, and he quick hit Kraft in the flat. He got Romeo Doubs on the flat, and he kind of spread them out that way, and then eventually he was able to kind of attack the middle. So Flores knows that. Now he's going to make his little adjustments. And this is a better Vikings defense talent-wise than it was a year ago. I mean, they signed like 9 UFAs, and they are way more solid. They gave up Danielle Hunter, who's like a stud. I mean, he is top-of-the-line pass rusher, but they added like 3 guys to replace him, and I think Flores really likes that. I think Flores is using those guys in a way that's been really effective.
The operation will be interesting for a guy that's only played one game to this point. He's missed the last two. You talk about rust. Yeah. He's got to operate everything. So that'll be. But to your point about guys suffering, we haven't seen Dontavian Wicks really at all yet. He had the touchdown catch on third down week 2 against the Colts. But other than that, like this to me feels like a Dontavian Wicks week if it just follows pattern. Week 1 and their leading receiver right now has 10 catches on the season. Now, they have 4 guys with at least 5. There's parity, which was what we expected in this passing game. But week 1 was Jaden Reed. Week 2 was Romeo Doubs. Week 3 was Christian Watson. It just feels like week 4, if it follows suit, is a Dontavian Wicks week. And that's what this Packers offense at the skill set has, is the type of depth where you got to kind of focus on everyone. If you're looking at this offense for 3 games, Dontavian Wicks, this guy hasn't done anything. You might be tempted to kind of, okay, let's shift our focus in these other areas. I think it could be a big week for Dontavian Wicks, and that's just the depth that they have. Even though they don't have big receiving numbers, a lot of guys have gotten involved.
Yeah. Going back to the point, too, with Luke Musgrave, because obviously most of the guys, Tucker Kraft as well, has been going through practice. He's had the red jersey, like the no-contact jersey, and he left a little bit during the Titans game. He came back in, and outside of that, a lot of the guys have been healthy. Jordan Morgan's another guy who hasn't been able to practice for the past couple of days. But because of what Tucker Kraft's trying to be healthy, do you think you might see a little bit more of Musgrave in this game, or is it, I guess, too early to tell?
Only if Love plays. I think if Love plays, then there's a chance you'll see. But Tucker Kraft is such a better blocker.
Yes.
And he's just a complete player. He's a better player than Luke Musgrave. I believe it. I ranked him ahead of Musgrave in my 1-53 because I just thought he was a better all-around player, and I think his ceiling is higher. But Musgrave does play a role, and there's not a lot of linebackers that can cover him straight down the field. And if you can, if Flores is playing a bunch of cover 2, then send him down the middle of the field. And either, that tightens the safeties and you can hit Watson deep, or, if they start to spread out a little bit, then you hit Musgrave deep. I think he'll be a factor in this game.
That's the one thing that Luke Musgrave does better than Tucker Kraft to stretch the seam. And you need a Jordan Love to do that. But what Tucker Kraft is that classic inline tight end, and that is huge. That's bedrock, foundational in Matt LaFleur's offense, because when you've got a tight end that lines up in line and can do everything that the tight end position requires, from receiving to playmaker with the football in his hands to the blocking, you can camouflage so much better. You can rift off plays so much better. I mean, that is a fundamental aspect of this scheme. So I don't think it's not a coincidence. He's going to continue to get more snaps. He is tight end 1 because of what the scheme is more than just about anything. Luke Musgrave's a better seam stretcher, but that's one aspect and not the all-encompassing classic inline tight end that Tucker Kraft is.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about Musgrave is against the Vikings, you probably don't want him in line as much. You want him to be out in a slot position or something, a flex position. If he's got to be held in to block, look out.
Yeah.
Because it was really funny. The Texans thought they were going to block, I think it was Grenard, with a rookie tight end. And they kept putting him next to Laramie Tunsil. I watched this a couple of times, and it was just hilarious. I mean, he just knocked this guy right on his can, and he was, and you're like, why do you keep putting this guy on this pass rusher? And, I think LaFleur will be smarter than that. So if they go to pass protection, if they have to do a lot of max protect, then, then maybe we don't see quite as much of Musgrave in the offense.
Yeah. So when you look at the Packers defense, again, it's going to be another tough assignment. Everyone knows Justin Jefferson and how talented he is. You look at quarterback Sam Darnold, he's having a strong year as well. I know it was suffered, I guess, a little bone bruise, but no structural damage, so he will play in Sunday's game. Of course, Aaron Jones, we'll talk more about him as well. But when you look at the Packers defense, I guess what do you think is the bigger challenge for them, the pass defense or the run defense, because Aaron Jones is playing great and Justin Jefferson being a really talented receiver? Ryan, start with you. Do you think there's a tougher assignment for either group?
Well, I can take one and Spoon just takes the other, whichever way I go, because they're both they're like 1A, 1B, right?
Yeah.
I'll take Aaron Jones, and there's a lot more to get into than just the football, obviously. But
yes.
when you look at the numbers, Aaron Jones has given this offense what they completely lacked the last 2 years. Overnight, he's given them a rush threat. And the numbers are pretty astounding. They're 13th in rushing through 3 games. Doesn't sound like a lot. They were 29th and 28th the last 2 years. Yeah. They were bottom of the league in rushing. Yeah. Overnight, they've gone from one of the worst rushing teams in the league to a respectable rushing team. You have to actually honor the run now against the Minnesota Vikings. It only makes everything else that much better. Yeah. The thing to me, Aaron Jones, he's doing what Aaron Jones does. He's averaging 5.4 yards per carry. And because of that, the Vikings as an offense are averaging 4.8 yards per carry. That's almost a full yard more than their 4 flat that they averaged last year. Every time they're running, they're getting a full yard more than they were because of Aaron Jones. Yeah. That is the Aaron Jones effect. So I'm going to say, and I just have this, the one bugaboo over the last 2 weeks, which have been 2 great weeks for the Packers. Jonathan Taylor, week 2, he got a lot of, not a lot of touches, not a lot of carries, but he got a lot of yards. How this Packers defense, the linebacking core especially, defends Aaron Jones, to me would be maybe the biggest concern going into this one. But, Spoon, you can Justin Jefferson.
I'm with you 100%. I was thinking about it.
I picked it right.
On my drive up here, and I was thinking the guy that's got to be on the field a lot is Edgerrin Cooper. Because unlike LaFleur, O'Connell is splitting Jones out, and using him in the pass game too. And then he puts Justin Jefferson in the backfield, which they've done before. But Aaron Jones is a viable wide receiver. And so who are you going to have go out and cover him? If you can put a linebacker like Edgerrin Cooper out on him, then you're not, compromising your defense. All of a sudden you got him one-on-one, and then everything can remain the same everywhere else. And you can play your base defense, you can play nickel defense, whatever. You don't have to waste Keyshawn Nixon going over and covering the running back, and then all of a sudden you got a mismatch somewhere else with Cooper. I think he needs to be on the field a lot, and I also think he is one of the few guys who can, probably handle Jones's moves, and be able to chase him. I think that'll be key. Jefferson's always going to be. You just can't let him go off. If I were going to pick who was going to go off, I would let Jones go off before I'd let Justin Jefferson, because he's just a game changer. We saw the San Francisco game. They're on the 3-yard line, and they throw a ball over the safety, makes a bad mistake, and boom, he's gone for a 97-yard touchdown. That's the guy you gotta hold in check. And you'd rather have Jones kind of, dig at you than Jefferson killing you with 3 plays, and you're down 21-0 or whatever.
I gotta be honest. Your logic is sound, and I totally understand what you're saying, but I winced a little bit when you said put a rookie linebacker on Aaron Jones. Like, that is a scary matchup, isn't it? Like, that's a rookie. He hasn't had a whole lot, and then, one of the best route running backs in all of football. That would be very interesting to see.
Yeah, I would not feel bad about it if I were Halfley. I think Edgerrin Cooper is really super talented, fast. I've seen him, a couple times run with guys, and yeah, you're right. It's a challenge, but I would still do it.
I want to see that matchup now. That's fascinating to me. I think the point on Justin Jefferson, what has been by far the most positive improvement from last season roster-wide, it's been the secondary, right?
Oh, yeah.
They have 7 picks in 3 games. They had 7 picks all last season.
Oh, yeah.
So now Justin Jefferson comes to town, and it's like the ultimate litmus test. Okay, you're much, much better than a year ago. Low bar. They were real bad a year ago. You're much better now. Can you handle Justin Jefferson? That's a big question mark for me.
Who do you put on him?
You can.
That's a question,
You're going to put Jerry Alexander on him. No question.
Is he going to match him? Is it going to be 4 quarters?
I think
He's
so.
going to Joe Barry him or not?
I think he is. I think he's going to match him, and I think you'll see Xavier McKinney over the top almost the entire game.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to play a lot of cover too, and then that's a challenge playing Jones, because then all of a sudden you got a light box or a regular box, and then Jones can run on you. But if I have two, I don't want to say they're the best at their positions in the NFL. They're among the best. And I can use them to cover Justin Jefferson. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. I'm taking them out, and I'm saying, you're not going to beat us with Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. I guess it would make sense to your point. So I guess if Aaron Jones gets 100 rushing yards, but maybe no touchdowns, but Justin Jefferson's touches are limited because of what Jair and Xavier McKinney does, you would like the chances for the Packers in this game.
Yeah, and if they get ahead, then you're really at an advantage. But of course, that's a big if.
Well, it's a big if, but they've had 2 great starts the last 2 weeks, and that's been huge. I don't know if we've talked about that enough, because with the backup quarterback and having to run the football and having to have that balance, it's night and day having that hot start and not. If they were on the opposite end of that against the Colts and Titans, it really screws their entire game plan. Like, you can't. If you're playing behind on the scoreboard, and then you're going to be playing behind on the sticks, and you're playing catch up, this offense wouldn't have been able to handle that, but it was able to get out to those hot starts, and it obviously affects. You better hope Aaron Jones doesn't find the end zone this week, because he's Lambo leaping. He's doing it in a purple jersey.
If Love starts, the one thing to think about is that he's only played 1 game, and LaFleur rolled out, a few things, rolled out, what he felt he needed to win to beat the Eagles. But there's a lot of unscouted looks left in his bag, because Love hasn't played the last 2 weeks. And so if I'm him, I might even take the ball. I don't think I would. But the first time they get
not at home, right?
Nah, not at home. The first time they get the ball, you want to throw a ton of unscouted looks and try to turn that into a touchdown, and then try to play from an advantage. I think that'll be something we'll see as to whether he tries to just, Jordan Love, just get used to playing. We're just going to give you some safe throws, or does he go to these looks where they try to hit some big plays?
Yeah. I love to see for offenses those first 8 to 10 plays, because the Titans game, Malik, with a 30-yard completion to Jaden Reed, just everybody's like, okay, what's going on here? And then it just turned into a good drive.
Carved the Packers up with unscouted looks.
Very true.
They came right back and just chewed them up. And, it took both teams. Then it's who can adjust better.
Yeah. So personally, for you guys, as you were here, speaking of Aaron Jones, I was talking to some beat writers from Minnesota. They said he's already become a Vikings fan favorite. For both of you guys, just, what was it like covering him? What was it like just seeing him around Green Bay? And again, the fans have been just really just outspoken about their appreciation for him. He wrote a classy letter to Green Bay. Just what was it like covering? I'll start with you, Ryan. What was it like covering Jones?
Yeah, I'll go first. I want to know something specifically from Spoon, but we don't know these guys outside the locker room. We don't know these guys outside of interaction. But if ever you can just get a tell on a guy and what their character is, Aaron Jones was as infectious a personality as I've ever encountered on doing this job. We're not supposed to have favorites, not very objective to have favorites, but we're also human. And when you go 7 years with one guy, and you literally never have a negative interaction, not one time. I never in 7 years did I ever, not one day, not a down day. Never had a negative interaction with Aaron Jones. That's tough to do, because everyone has their days. Every single person. I have my days. And this guy, he was never anything but the epitome of this infectious personality that just, he's the type of person that makes you feel good when you talk to him. He makes you feel good being around him. There's not a lot of people like that in this world. I haven't encountered a lot of people like that. So he was, as a person, he was one of my favorites that I've ever talked to, just because of that. I think if you feel that way as a objective media reporter, the love for him from teammates inside that locker room is off the charts. I mean, you can tell. I went up to Kenny Clark on Wednesday. I said, Kenny, I want to ask you a question I've never asked you before in your career. Been here forever, never asked you. What was it like scouting Aaron Jones? And he just had this huge smile, like, man, like this is a defensive tackle, but that's still his guy. Like, every single person on this roster loves that guy. It is, it's business, but it's personal too. What I'm curious, Spoon, you've been here for more of these personal reunions than I have. You remember Brett Favre coming here, Greg Jennings coming here. How do you think this one will compare?
Well, it's interesting. As you were talking about Love, I was going through my mind about my first interactions with him and just his career as it went through. And there were a lot of things he had to go through to become that guy that we're talking about. I'll never forget, very first game of his career, he was inactive.
Yeah.
And I remember going up to him and saying, hey, did you, he had a pretty good preseason, if you remember. And he's like, they told me special teams. I couldn't play special teams. And he was really upset. And so, what did he do? He worked on that. And then they were really concerned about his blocking. And he just worked and worked and worked and got better at that. He fought through injuries. There were some jealousies in the running back room, I think, at some points, that because he was so talented, even when he maybe wasn't playing his best, they were trying to get him going. Ultimately, he became this guy who had been through so much, and his character was so high that, he was kind of the granddaddy by the time last year. I mean, he's still only like 29 years old or whatever. But he was, especially for Jordan Love, he was just like a really veteran uncle who, I'm right here for you. Don't worry about a thing. You just do what you got to do, but I'm here for you. And so I think it'll be very emotional for him, very emotional. And you don't expect anything but him to be a class. I think it was funny, Gary said on that Clubhouse Live that he said he's the only back in the league that I'll help get up after a tackle. So I don't know. I think that emotion wears off after a while. I think it's really high early on, and it's he's going to be pretty pumped. Yeah. And then from there, he'll be Aaron Jones, I think.
I'll be curious after the game what you notice from, the Favre comeback, and which obviously that's a different animal because of who he was, but even the Jennings comeback, how Sunday, because it's going to be emotional Sunday. The thing you're saying about Love, I don't know if there's one interaction, one interview that stands out, because they were all positive, but I will never forget late last season, I'm doing the story charting Jordan Love's throws in his first season as starter, and trying to get a blueprint on what he did well, where his weaknesses are, and there was a lot of positives. And Aaron Jones beaming about Jordan Love, and it was personal to him. There was a personal pride. He told me, I get to tell everyone I told you so, because he immediately came in and threw all of his support, immediately after the Aaron Rodgers trade last year, threw all of his support around Jordan Love, but behind Jordan Love. He was the first player to go out there to Southern California and work out with him. Mm-hmm. He was the very first one, which Jordan Love mentioned. Like that taking time out of his busy schedule to do that meant a ton to Jordan Love. But he said, I get to tell everyone I told you so. Because from day one, Aaron Jones said nothing but Jordan Love's going to be the guy. Even when we didn't see it, there was open question, but Aaron Jones never wavered. He's going to be the guy. By the end of the season, when it was clear he was the guy, there was no one happier in that locker room to be right. And it wasn't just because he was right. It was because how much he cared about Jordan Love. Like there's a genuineness to him that you don't find everywhere.
It does say a lot about someone when you can say your teammates, your friend, they just don't have a bad word to say. Jordan Love, Kenny Clark, Matt LaFleur said he's one of the favorite guys he's ever coached. And, again, it goes a long way. I do wonder if he does score and he does the Lambeau Leap and looks for Vikings fans, if there'll be maybe some boos or like some groans or anything like that, what the reaction could be like.
I had someone on Twitter say, I hope he rethinks this Lambeau Leap thing. I'm like, well, hey, the Packers are welcome to stop it if they want. Like, it's up to the defense. If he gets in the end zone, he absolutely should do a Lambeau Leap. He had plenty over the years. Did you guys read the Players Tribune article that he came out with?
I read some of it. Yeah. I didn't get to read the whole thing.
Not the whole thing. I did like the line about not having a G on the helmet, but still have one in his heart.
What stood out to me was he referenced specifically the 2-game suspension to start his second season because of the marijuana citation, which is really easy to forget now because, Dom, he is a guy that like you can't say an ill word about. Like he's that type of guy. Yeah. But he made a mistake. He's not perfect. He's human. He made a mistake, and you saw him own it in a way that I thought was just really admirable. I mean, it was a big start of your second season, you're suspended the first 2 games because of a dumb mistake. So many people go through dumb mistakes. Not a lot of people own it the way he did. I thought that jumped out to me.
Yeah, and I'll never forget the video of it that came out. He was just so nice, and I'm saying to myself, dude, don't let him in the car. You know your rights. Know your rights. Don't let him in. He's like out there, and oh yeah, I did it. And he's just so nice about it. And, and I'm like, know your civil rights. Know your civil rights. Anyway.
Yeah, so it is.
Yeah, he owned up to it.
He
and
did.
He accepted. I don't think he appealed the suspension, and then he came back and was himself.
It was admirable, I thought.
So, again, that's just the epitome of a classy guy, and there's been plenty of examples where you've witnessed that. So, as we near the end of this podcast, something that I did want to touch on, because it could be a game, obviously, who knows how this game might go, but it could possibly be a game where points could be hard to come by because of how the defenses are playing and different things of that nature. So, when you look at special teams, it could be another big game for them, not only maybe with Daniel Whelan's punts, but the point that you even made before we started, Spoon, that you have 2 rookie kickers in this game, so everyone is going to have to be on their A game.
Yeah, Reichard, their draft pick from Alabama, who's one of the top, they drafted him, one of the top kickers in the class. He's 5 for 5. He's kicked twice indoors, so that probably helps. And I don't know what the weather's or what the wind's supposed to be like on Sunday, but it's 2 rookies going up against each other. Both teams are saying, we're going to ride with these guys, and Narveson, the fact that he's missed 2 and missed one that didn't count, pressure's still on, and at some point he's going to have to hit a game-winning kick, I would think, or at least a kick that sends it, ties it up or
puts it away,
something at the end of the fourth quarter. And that's what I want to see. Ultimately that's going to kind of help decide what his future is, I think.
And more for confidence, too. Is there anything?
Y'all know how I feel. Just got to stop missing kicks. Just stop missing. And I get that his stat sheet said he didn't last week. He missed that 48-yarder.
Yeah.
Got lucky on the penalty. Just stop missing kicks. Have a clean week. On both sides. I have seen way too many missed kicks in this league. Packers had a ton of missed kicks against them last year. Now, it went both ways. Yeah. I've seen just kickers make your kicks. Come on, it's not that hard. Just make your. We got one job. You got one job. Make your kicks.
He was thrown off by Jeffrey Simmons pulling whoever the heck it was. I can't remember. I went back and watched that play. It was hilarious. I mean, he got to hide that, So they got him for pulling. I don't know who the Packers blocker was, but he pulled him back, and then that number 49 came right up and threatened to block it. Maybe that distracted him. You could always use that as an excuse. But it was one of the funniest plays I've seen. It's Simmons. You got to put your back to the official so he doesn't see it. Come on.
As subtle as Rasul Douglas moving the football before snap.
Come
on, man.
Yeah.
I love it. You have any final words, guys? Anything you need to touch on before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, interesting game. Nothing doesn't decide anything about where either team will be at the end of the year, but it's you want to find out where you stand, and I think this is a good game for both teams to see where they stand at a quarter of the way through the season.
It's more pressure on the Packers than the Vikings in this game, I think. It's early, so ultimately it's not going to sway the needle one way or the other. But I think it is more pressure because it's home. I did not have the Vikings being 3-0 on my bingo card coming into the season. I did not have that happening. I am surprised, and I still don't believe in them. And I could totally be wrong here. I still don't believe in them. But if they are a formidable foe in this division, you better beat them at home because beating them in Minnesota is going to be that much tougher. I think the other thing we didn't talk. Sam Darnold. I'm very curious to see him actually in person because you made a comment, Spoon, last week about Malik Willis and how he was a third-round pick. He was a talented guy. He was drafted first 2 days for a reason. He's just never been in a situation before that's really allowed him to succeed. Well, Sam Darnold was a third overall pick. Talent's never been the issue with him. He's always been talented. He's never been in a good position. And now he's surrounded by all this wealth of playmaking from Justin Jefferson to, and it's not just Justin. They're going to get T.J. Hawkinson back. Like they have Aaron Jones. They've got so much talent. It reminds me a little bit of the San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's a talented guy, or he wouldn't be doing what he's doing. But how much easier is it when you have Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williamson, as your left tackle? Like, how much easier is it to play quarterback in that system? It reminds me a little bit of Sam Darnold. I'll be very curious to see him in this kind of new home that he's found.
Yeah, it's also, it says something about, Young in Carolina. You don't want to quite give up on him right away. I mean, look what happened to Baker Mayfield. He finally gets in a spot where he's got an offensive line around him. He's got some receivers, and he's playing pretty well, and he gets a big contract. Same thing with Darnold. Matthew Stafford he just lingered in
stuck around somehow, right?
In Detroit, and then he gets to L.A. and he wins the Super Bowl right away. So sometimes you just got to get in the right position, and maybe this is the right spot for Darnold.
Yeah. Looking forward to this game, but also the crowd could be a great atmosphere, no question. I feel like that Colts game was kind of like a teaser in terms of building up. Now that you have this big matchup with the Vikings,
well, this is going to be your first. You've
real
done
deal.
a game with the backup court, but like you're going to see your first division rivalry game at Lambeau Field. It's different. I'll never forget mine. It was Thursday Night Football 2014. Vikings came to town. I think it might have been week 4. It was early in the season. It was Julius Peppers had the pick 6 in that game. That was my first Packers-Vikings game. So 10 years later, I still remember mine. It's a fun rivalry.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be a great game. And we thank you all for checking out the Green 19 podcast. We'll keep you posted on all things with this Packers team, getting ready for Sunday's game against the Vikings. So for Ryan Wood, Tom Silverstein, I'm Dominique Yates. Go enjoy the game.